welcome to EASON's here in Main Street, Cavan. Today we have the launch of Father Brian Darcy's book, It Has to Be Said. But before we go on and meet the great Father Darcy, I want to speak about the week that it has been in the social history of Ireland. We did see this week the passing of Gay Byrne, and we saw his funeral as well. What a day for the country, and what a day for Ireland. In social history, he's a man, an icon who will go down in history. And that's where I was leading to. I'm speaking to another such icon now, Father Brian Darcy. Sorry, Father. We were all enamoured and we loved Gay and we talked about him and great stories about him and everything like that. But you're in the same league.
Oh no, I wasn't in the same.
No, but your popularity and your social being and the social thing around you. You are there. You are an icon.
Well,
as a priest and as the work you do for music as well.
For music and indeed writing for the Sunday World, which I've done now, completed 44 years, which is a bit of a record in itself. I'm so long in the National Union of Journalists that I don't have to pay dues anymore. They said if you paid dues for 40 years, then you're fine. So I'm lucky enough to be able to do that.
So, Father, you've written this book. This has to be said.
I wrote this book basically because I'm getting old, and you never know A, when you're going to die, or B, when you're going to lose your memory. And for the sake of my family and the people who were very good to me throughout the years, a lot of controversial things I was involved in one way or another. Good friends came around me last January and they said, look, you need to write that book because we need to hear what the facts and the story are from your point of view, so that when you die, nobody invents stuff about you. And that's the way the world.
Just to clear it up, sorry.
Just the facts and there. Apart from that, I think people were very interested. I wrote a memoir in 2006, which is 13 years ago, and it sold a huge number of books over 3 or 4 years, and it's out of print now. And a lot of the people that I wanted to write about then were still alive, and I couldn't because it was their story, not mine. And you'd be afraid of offending them. Many of them, sadly, have gone to the reward since, and that whole connection with them, like the Dara family and John O'Grady and getting his fingers cut off, and the Border Fox and O'Hare, and indeed the Vatican too, the Vatican trying to silence me, all of those things needed to be written about in a clear way.
So that's in the book, here in Sale and EASON's again.
Yeah.
It has to be said, and as Christmas is coming up, it's a great time to buy a book, to give a book, and to read the book. It has to be said. But to get back to some of your controversial stories and where you did not step out of line, but so much came to the fore and said what you thought. Can you mention some of the stories there?
Well, I suppose the biggest stories that I was involved in really were what people remember was the 1995-ish debate with the same Gay Byrne on the Late Late, and when Cardinal Daly was on the Late Late, and it seemed that we had a row, and indeed we had a row, and it became an iconic difference of opinion on television. Even they played it several times this week when Gay died as one of the standout moments of the Late Late show. I suppose that's one of them, and it began. I never intended to do that night. In fact, I wasn't supposed to be on the programme at all. But Gay saw me doing a radio programme, and he said to the producer, "Brian's outside there. I want him on the programme. If things go wrong, he'll know how to get me out of it." And so that's the reason I was on in the front. And near the end of the programme, they were about to boo Cardinal Daly because he just wasn't connecting with the audience at all. And they were about to boo him, and Gay didn't want that to happen on his show, and he just instantly chose the professionalism of the man. Instantly he turned to me and he said, "Brian, you wanted to say something, didn't you?" Now, I didn't actually, but when you're given that opening, you can't say no, because they would have booed the Cardinal more. So I had to try and rescue it. Now, in rescuing that, the Cardinal himself shot back at me in a very angry way, and probably understandable, but I couldn't just say, let it happen. I had to stand up for myself and stand up for the people, and I did that. And didn't realise the impact it would have. People always thought that was the beginning of people taking control of their own life and moving out from under the suppression of church rule.
Yeah, well, I'd love to speak to you here all day, but Sean's waiting to get interviewing you as well. We'll talk about the changing time in the church. No more than the media is changing, no more than RTE is changing, the way gay changed society as well. Things are changing. The church does not have such a tight hold on the people anymore. People are able to make up their own minds, be it good, be it bad. They're able to make up their own minds. You've seen this, you've come through all of this. Now, in a short, brief segment, what way would you like to see the Catholic Church heading now? We are heading into a shortage of priests. Priests are still celibate, don't get married. There's a shortage of priests. Religion is, you could say, dying out. Having said and seen all that, what would your best advice be for the church now?
Well, the first thing is times change and everybody has to change with it. What used to be right can no longer be sufficient for the change in society. It's not just the church, by the way. The governments around the world, the health systems around the world, newspapers, everything is changing. So everybody has got to first listen. Listen, that's the first thing. Because if you come in with an answer, you're not likely to get the question. And so you have to listen and see, what can we do? Everything is going to be done from the roots up instead of from the top down. That's the incredible flux that has happened in society. The church has got to do that too. And I think God's guiding us that way by sending us a shortage of priests, because he's really saying to us, listen, the clerical church of clerics and priests doing everything is gone. What you have got to do is let lay people, married people, women, God's baptised people from the ground up take control of their own church. When we allow that to happen, the church will thrive.
Are they listening to you on that? Is that happening? Will it happen anytime soon?
Not likely. The Pope is listening. He's trying it. The big synod that he had with the Amazon group is exactly what that happens. And out of that came, why don't we ordain married men? There's no need to have a shortage of priests. And that's from the Pope himself. They're not listening. But what will happen, time will take them. 10 years' time, most of us will be dead. So people have to say, we have to do something.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, to get back to your very interesting life, and that is your life on the Irish music scene. You were the chaplain to the musicians.
50 years.
50 years, and you've met some very interesting people. Just even flicking through your book there, I see that you met royalty.
Yes.
You've met who's who and what's what of Irish music, and indeed far abroad as well.
Yes. The only person that I ever wanted to meet and didn't was Elvis. Presley. I would love to have met Elvis Presley. Had the opportunity to do so and said, sure, I'll do it some other time. I was over one time, I'd never take holidays, but I was over in Las Vegas for a few days because one of the royal showmen, Brendan Boyer, one of the girls and was dancers, was getting married, and they wanted me over to do the wedding for them. So I went out for a few days to Vegas at that time. And believe it or not, Brendan Boyer and the Royal Show Band, or Brendan Boyer and the Big Eight, were firm favourites of Elvis Presley's. And Brendan used to do a slot in his programme imitating Elvis. It was a 20-minute slot. Elvis, many nights, would come in from his own show to watch Brendan Boyer imitating him. And he'd bring the boys up, Tom Dunphy, the late Tom Dunphy was killed in a car crash, and all of them. He'd bring them up to his hotel suite in the Hilton. And have tea or a drink with them and let them off. And I was there one night, and Brendan said, if he comes in tomorrow night, would you come with it? I said, what? Then I realised I was leaving the next day. So I had to leave, and I thought to myself, sure, it'll happen. I'll see him the next time I'm over. And I didn't see him.
Who would have thought Elvis would go that quickly?
Precisely. No. At such a young age.
I have a question I'd like to ask you, and that is about our life, the life we're living, modern day life. The music, as you say, everything is changing. Media, social, political, everything is changing. When the music bands were going years ago, you had people dancing in halls. You had very little drink. People were communicating. They were dancing. There were stories. There were great stories from those times. We had a connection with people from all over. Now with social media and the keypad all the time, it's not happening. Do you think we are better or worse off for that?
I think we're worse off for that. I think there's a lot of society is very, very good. But I think we've lost the ability to connect. And if you lose that, you lose your humanity. And if you lose that, you lose your community. and you can't replace those. You have to have them. So, people can think they're communicating, but with people as you say, on a keyboard, they could be anywhere in the world, but they have, can hide behind the keyboard. How do you know this?
We need human contact.
How do you know there's anything authentic? Being authentic, have things integrated in your life is absolutely vital. And the only way you can do that is by communicating with each other face to face, as you and I are doing now. And that's the only way it can be done.
And there's nothing like that not intimate, but social, to bring the soul up and make people happy. We would have less depression, less stress, less anxiety if we were like that. And that's a good message.
The point about it is, as you quite rightly say, that we're better than we think we are. If you're hiding behind a keyboard, you never know if they are good, bad or indifferent. You'll judge yourself on the number of likes you get on your keyboard, which is the worst possible way. That is the saddest possible way of doing it. And by communicating, you learn to respect A, yourself, and B, the person you're talking to. And if you haven't respect, you have no relationship.
Yeah. There's just one little thing I'd like to speak about as well, and that is Cavan has hit the news in a very bad light, Cavan and Derrylin and Fermanagh, in the last few weeks with the dreadful abduction of Kevin Lunny and the treatment, the awful treatment that has been doled out, and the subsequent stuff of that, and seemingly that the border is breaking down again. Do you think we could head into times that are not as peaceful?
Yeah, well, it is always possible if you have Brexit. You'll all, apart from issues that you've just mentioned, which are very genuine issues that is just mentioned. First of all, I know Kevin Lunny, and I know all of the ones involved in all of that because they were friends and neighbours and I grew up with them, and I'm on many committees with Kevin Lunny. Kevin's a wonderful fella, and what happened to him should not happen to anybody. I did in my life.
It was dreadful.
Worse than that, it was just shameful. In my life, I've done mediation in 4 kidnappings altogether. So I know a bit about it. But now I think at long last, the security forces on both sides of the border are doing, in my opinion, what they should have done 5 years ago, so that nobody gets a hold in the border area. But now we need to be very careful. Pope Paul VI said many years ago, peace is more than the absence of war. That's a good message for us. We presumed that because there was no war, there was peace. That wasn't so, because there was no communication, no building up of relationships. And we have to work at peace. We haven't done it. And this codology that's going on in Stormont is partly to blame for it. I think because of the financial crisis down here, the government down here took the eye off it. And with Brexit, who knows who's ruling England? So I mean, who's going to look after the peace then? So you can sort of pinpoint it into a small group of activity. Actually, if you do that, you're still missing the point. You have to take the bigger security of the Good Friday Agreement, the bigger land of communications, the bigger cooperation between police forces, and if you had that, you wouldn't have the awful stuff that is happening, not just in Cavan and Fermanagh, but in Monaghan and Leitrim and other places. Where you have a border, you'll have that, unless you take care of the community. Okay, so we're going to keep it short. Having said all that, I would like you to perhaps look at the camera there. Think of the times that's coming up. Christmas is coming, a time of hope and hopefully peace. And we are heading into uncharted territories down in Cavan and the border areas. So if I were to say to you, Father, give a message of hope and possibly love for our area and for us for Christmas. Go ahead. Well, the first thing I would say to you is, being a Fermanagh man myself, bordering Cavan, bordering Donegal, bordering Leitrim and bordering Monaghan, we have far more in common than we have in difference. First of all, make sure to get your family together. Switch off your television, switch off your telephones, switch off your laptops. Talk to each other. You'll discover a wonderful human person under your own roof. You'll find a wonderful human person inside yourself that you haven't yet met. That's what Christmas is. The God made human within you. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much, Father Darcy. It was wonderful talking to you. And of course, we wish you the best with your book. And it'll be available in EASON's now. Yeah, it has to be said. And I think we said plenty today. We did. This is like a puppy. It's not just for Christmas. It's for all the year. Well, thank you very much, Father. Enjoyed the conversation. Brian, thank you. Darcy, thank you. God bless all my Cavan friends.